All right, hello everybody. Doug with the LincolnList.com. Welcome to Happy Hour with the Lincoln, episode number 2, where we share our favorite drinks, talk about our war stories as traders, and talk about trading ideas for the following week. I did mention last week that my idea was to take it to a live streaming format. I got a lot of response to it, so I think next week, which will be October 17th, Friday, after the market closes, about 15-20 minutes after the market closes, we'll try to do this live. Now, if you can't make it live, that's okay. It will be recorded and archived. I'll put it on the website. That way everybody gets a chance to watch it at their own leisure if they can't make it because of scheduling conflicts. So we'll give it a try and see how it goes from that. And I do appreciate your comments. So if you guys have any comments, what you want to talk about, anything you want to know about trading, whatever, or just off topic, just send me an email, support@thelincolnlist.com. I also have another announcement that I want to make in addition to that. Trade Ideas, which is a scanner that we use, been using that for a long time because I consider it to be the best scanner out there right now for finding stock ideas, is doing another open house. Now, they did one of these a few months ago. They only do a couple of these a year. They had such a good response. They're doing another one here for a Halloween special. And what it is, you'll get a week's access during the trial period to test out their premium service, which is not just their scanners, but it's also their Holly AI artificial intelligence trading technology. Now, I don't have enough time to go into that in this video, but I did recently do a couple of posts about their scanners, how we use their scanners, and also how my trading went when I was using Holly, the artificial intelligence. I put those links at the bottom of this video, so if you get a chance, just browse through them. If you don't know about Trade Ideas or you're trying to get a little bit more understanding, that'll get you familiar with it. But nonetheless, what I want to do is something that I did the same time. And the reason why this is a big announcement, because if you sign up for the trial, anytime from now until the trial is over, I will give you free access to our live trade room at thelincolnlist.com during your term of the trial. That way you'll see how these trade ideas work in real time along with our room, how you trade stocks with them and so on, or how we use them. If you decide to stay on board with Trade Ideas, I'll continue to do what I mostly do in cases is that if you have a Trade Ideas subscription and you get it through us, that I will give you free access to the LincolnList.com as long as you're a member. You have to use this link below, but if you don't use the link, well, I can't help you out. So really good idea there from Trade Ideas. Check it out. Visit the links that I had posted. Now let's move on. I have a special surprise here for everyone, and that is some Jura whiskey. Now, Jura here, the story behind Jura is, if you watched last week, we did a little bit of Port Charlotte. I explained that the Isle of Islay is my favorite area for Scotch. I love the way that the Isle of Islay Scotches taste. When I was over there last summer, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know there was an island called Jura. There's not much about my geography. But I go over there, and there's an island called Jura, and they made their own whiskey. And I wanted to make it a point to get there, but I was unable to do so because I had other things going on. And lo and behold, when I get back to California, if you guys know what Bevmo is, it's like a little whiskey shop. Well, it's distilled spirits and other stuff. Lo and behold, they have some of this heavily peated Jura whiskey. So I picked it up right away because I wanted to taste it. It does have a lot of the smoky flavor that you get from those Islay brands. Not quite as much as what I'm used to with like Port Charlotte, Ardbeg, Lafroig, those other kinds. But still, it's pretty good. Now you'll notice, let me take a drink and cheers to you first. It's pretty smooth too. Not as smooth as Port Charlotte, but pretty smooth. Now, if you look at the bottle right here, you'll notice it's pretty cleverly crafted, so to speak. Now, the story behind this, because they'll tell you the story there, the story behind it's called Prophecy, is that in the early 20th century, I guess the Campbells, the family called the Campbells, pretty much owned the entire island of Jura, like the whole thing. And they banished this old seer, and a seer is like a Nostradamus, somebody who can see the future, or some people call them witches or whatever. So they banished this old seer from the island. On her way out from the island, she curses the family and says that the last remaining Campbell will leave the island broke and penniless without an eye. That's a pretty good prediction. So anyway, that comes to be true according to folklore that in 1938, Charles Campbell, who was the last Campbell to leave the island, lost his eye in World War I, and then leaves the island virtually penniless, never to return. So they honor that prophecy by calling not just a whiskey prophecy, but they put the eye of the seer, and it means that the eye is constantly looking over you, judging your every move. Now, who knew? Who knew you could learn so much from Scotch? I don't know if any of that's true. I never did the research on this Charles Campbell, but I do know one thing, that if you drink enough of this, you will be broke and penniless and probably lose an eye. So interesting story there for Jura. It's a pretty good whiskey. I got a couple of questions pertaining to the whiskey about the bottles. This goes about, I think, $70. Usually most of the bottles I buy range anywhere from 50 to 70 bucks. Sometimes when people think Scotch, they think you're spending $300 to $400 just for a little small glass like that. But no, it's not. Usually you can certainly buy Scotches for that price. But for the most part, Scotches are you can get a good Scotch for 40 to 50 bucks. You don't need to spend all of that money. So if you ever get a chance, try out some of this Jura, you'll like it. Now, some of the questions that I did get as well was, what is a good starter whiskey? Well, whiskey's a lot like trading in the fact that it takes you a while to figure out, like traders, we have to figure out what our style is, right? We have to figure out what kind of trades we like, what kind of trader we are. I've done a lot of videos on that. But just as that, you have to figure out what kind of taste of whiskey. Some people like, the Irish whiskeys, some people like Tennessee whiskeys, bourbons, scotches. Each area that whiskey is distilled has its own unique flavor. And like I mentioned, I love the Isle of Islay, not just because I like the Scotch, but I like the way the smoky Scotches taste. So that's really distinctive to the area of the Isle of Islay in Scotland. That's why I like those distilleries. So you have to kind of figure out that first. But as a great benchmark is to start out looking for something that's in the low 40s alcohol by volume. Because you don't want to just sit there and get hammered when you're drinking Scotch. It's not what it's for. It's to enjoy the flavors that the Scotch has. And in the beginning, if it has too much alcohol in it, it's going to ruin your taste buds, and you're not going to get to taste the flavor that actually comes from the Scotch, because it's going to burn your throat. It's too strong. Now, mostly like the Ardbegs, Lagavulins, Bowmores, this Jura, Port Charlotte, they all range at about the mid-40s. If you get into something like Ardbeg Supernova that's in the 50s, I would say this: if you get something that's in the low 40s, you should be okay as far as that strong alcohol taste. When you start getting into the 50 or something like a Knobs Creek, which is 100 proof, it's like 60 ABVs. Once you get into up into the 50s, you're going to be dealing with a whiskey that's pretty strong, and it's going to burn your throat if you're not used to drinking whiskey. Even if you drink whiskey, the first couple of sips are going to go down pretty harsh. I also mentioned that if you don't like that taste, so let me back up. If you're looking for a great starter whiskey, get something down around the 40 ABVs, maybe a little bit less if they have them. That way you can enjoy the actual flavor and get used to tasting the flavor of the Scotch. And then go ahead and try to step up to some of the stronger ones where you can put more alcohol in, if that makes sense. Now, one of the things I did mention is if it does burn your throat, I said you put a little drop of the water. Somebody asked me about it. All you need is a little bit of purified water, just a bit. You can put like a drop. But what it does is it smooths out the alcohol, just about like this much. That's all you need right there, just a little drop. It smooths out that alcohol burn, but not only does it do that, but it also enhances a lot of the flavors that are in the whiskey. So something from an Islay or this Jura that has a smoky, peaty taste to it, it actually accentuates that peat and gives it more smoke and less alcohol. So it's a pretty good balance. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't, but it does change the flavor of the whiskey, so give it a try. As I said, whatever you do, don't put it on the rocks, because what happens if you put it on the rocks, it'll taste decent at first, but as that ice melts, then it'll just lay all down there at the bottom, and then you just have nothing but water and a little bit of Scotch, and you're going to end up throwing the rest of it out. So a couple of tips there for those that ask about Scotch, which brings me into a trading question as well. Since we're talking about starter Scotch, somebody asked me about starter positions. And this is something that's very important that I think gets overlooked in just about every area like, but really in trading, it gets overlooked a lot, is that people come into our trading game, which has always confused me, and they expect from the very beginning of their trading career that they're just going to just start dropping baller game, making money. And I know you see that stuff out there. You're kind of induced into coming into trading a lot with people showing pictures of Ferraris and money and all this other stuff. And you're led to believe that if you come into this and you learn their strategy, then in a couple of months, you're going to just turn around and you're just going to make bank. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It's no different than any other business that you're going to try. There's going to be a learning curve. And I always say this because it's important, because if you come under any kind of illusion that you're not expecting a learning curve, you're going to find out that trading it can be miserable for those that are not prepared on how to trade. So my point is this: when you're coming into trading, I did a video not too long ago. I'll try to post the link back to it. It was a whiteboard lesson where we talked about how long does it take to become a professional trader. And I've defined this into stages where a trader goes through during their career. Like when they're starting out, it's not about making money. I know it sounds crazy to the noobs out there, but I want you to hear me out. When you're starting out in the business, the last thing you should be thinking about is making any money whatsoever, because that's not what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is learn how to trade stocks. Because if you try to make money and you don't know how to trade stocks, you're not going to make any money. You're going to blow up your account, and that's where you hear these horror stories, or where people always say, oh, trading sucks. People don't make trading. It's gambling. It's only gambling. And it only sucks for those people that don't put in the work to try to do it. So in this beginning portion of your career, your focus is to learn how to trade stocks. And then once you learn how to trade stocks, you can start worrying about how to make money. We've always said at the Lincoln List, it's not about making money, it's about making good trades. So even as you progress further in your career, if you just focus on making good trades, you focus at one trade at a time, the money, you'll never have to worry about it. It'll make up for itself. You just do the right thing, or try to do the right thing. You follow your discipline, you follow your game plan, you follow your structure. The money should just be a byproduct of doing the right things. But back to my topic, if you're in that beginning stage and you're somebody that's new, you should never, ever, and I mean never, put any real money at risk. I mean, trade 10 shares, 20 shares, just because it's not about making money. It's about learning how to adapt to the market. That's not your focus. Your focus should be on how to learn, not make money. Now, some traders ask me about, should I start out on a simulator? Now, I might be cruel in this area, but simulators suck. They suck. They're only good for one thing, and that's learning the platform of the broker that you're using, and just so you can get used to pushing some buttons, which takes about a week. After that, you have no business trading on a simulator, because trading is 100% emotion. It's all emotions. Don't let anybody fool you and say they got a system that works. Systems help you make ideas, but it's all about managing those ideas, because there's so many factors in the market. These things just come up out of nowhere, and you have to be able to react. That's just how trading has always worked. So because it's all emotional, if you don't have any emotion or skin in the game, quote unquote skin in the game, then you're never going to learn the most valuable lesson of trading. So I would rather you trade on real money if it was 5 shares or 10 shares than to screw around with a simulator, because if on a simulated trading, there's no emotions, it does not count, it's paper, it's all hypothetical, and that's why people always say, geez, I make so much money on a simulator, but then when I trade real time, I lose all my money. Yeah, that's right, because you haven't developed your emotional character yet, and that's what you have to do. So a little bit of a rant there. Now let's kind of move on to talk about stocks. Let me sip a little bit here. That's good. I'm going to define last week. It was good. Last week was pretty good. It was a grinder week, which is usually most of my weeks. I really don't bat huge winners. I just do the same thing every day over and over again. Some days I win, some days I lose. And at the end, it usually turns out okay. About 4,700 and some change in gains. That's a good start to the very beginning portion of the week. So back to my normal average, which is about 20 to 25K in gains every month. That's the good part. It was a little on the slow side. I've made mention here before in the past of these videos. It's like the market doesn't seem like it opens at 9 o'clock anymore. It's like, or 8:30, whatever it opens. Or maybe I've had too much to drink already. But anyway, it seems like when the market opens, that first half hour used to be just filled with volume and craziness flying everywhere. It's almost like you couldn't keep up. Really through the month of September, especially after the interest rate announcement, it's almost like the market opens 30 minutes late. It's like stalling at the very beginning. And then all of a sudden stuff starts breaking out and moving around, and you start to see some choppy movement here and there. It doesn't mean that there's no opportunities or you can't make any money. It just means that sometimes we go through this as traders, the market changes, we have to change with it. So we have to kind of alter our strategies, be a little bit more patient about our entries, maybe sit back a little bit, be choosier with the things that we do. Just kind of notice that trend lately. So we'll see if that kind of carries itself throughout the remaining parts of the month, which I found is interesting. I can't remember a period of time where the morning, especially the first 10 minutes, have been as dull as what we've seen lately. So as far as a couple of stocks I want to look at starting Monday, I've got to start out. This CLSD is just like another byproduct of some of these massive stocks. I talked about this not too long ago. How many of these single digit stocks we've seen just really explode, like QE, CLCD, ACIA, the IPO, TWLO. Some of these stocks starting out at really, really low prices, especially like QE, CLSD, starting out in single digits and then reaching some epic prices. This thing's up huge. I mean, percent-wise, it just reeks of a short. But, when you look at it intraday, it doesn't really look like something that might be day tradable. If you're trying to get a quick gain around it, I think this is something that's going to have to be traded patiently, possibly as a swing. But I want to see how it maybe reacts if it gets to 25. I mean, super huge RSI. It's definitely on short watch, but it's got a janky kind of spread there. So we'll see how this thing plays out. But CLSD, definitely on the list here. Also, this ARRS. This was a big mover here on Friday and then closing above recent resistance of 29.52 on the daily chart. This is a good looking one for an extra breakout. This thing looks like it's going to go a lot higher. Now, it closed on the highs, and I don't really like to just be the first buyer of a stock like this on a Monday morning. But if it can settle in, maybe build a pattern or set up well, then I think going over 29.73, this is a long for moving yourself into the lower 30s. Now, in the case that it gaps up, or you get this really huge gap and it just kind of rips at the start of business, I wouldn't even buy. I wouldn't buy it then. I would probably look to short it if it was up enough percentage-wise and you had a good parabolic. But the chart on the daily looks good. Looks like this thing wants to go a little bit higher throughout the week. Speaking of cheap stocks going bonkers, REN has to be on the list. You can see here's another one. Going back to July, on the daily chart, if you look here, was $4 stock. Makes a nice run up into the 8s. Hangs there for a little while. Then after earnings, it goes from $8, pretty much non-stop, up to 30. So again, another single-digit stock making a ridiculously large move. Now, maybe that CLSD turns out to that. And I think as it goes on, people are looking at that. They're looking at that next IPO that's going to be like an ACIA or a TWLO. They're looking for the next REN. They're looking for the next QE. But you're starting to slow down a little bit. Maybe if we get under 28.68s, this could be a pretty good short. I'd love to short it on a para, but I think this deep in the cycle, you're not going to get a morning para. You're just going to have to probably look for a breakdown, maybe a double bottom intraday, then get short this thing and see if it can fill back in this gap to 26. So REN here on watch. And speaking of the devil herself, ACIA, I had a tough time like everyone else who tried to short this stock in its heyday here, ripping up, just grinding it out. But you notice that starting from August, you had about a quadruple bottom at $100 on the daily chart. On Friday, you get rid of that again. You're back under it. You're now under the 50 moving average, which it has not been under the 50 moving average since its existence as a stock. So you got one last little line of defense, which is like this little small double bottom at 98.25. This thing goes under 98.25. You've got a long way to go to fill this thing down in there, maybe down into the 70s. Looks like this thing is finally backsiding. But just like REN, I don't think you're going to see that parabolic to short into. It's just going to have to be something that you kind of take a look at step by step and see if you can get a good breakdown on this. But boy, do I like this one. So in review, everyone, CLSD, ARRS, REN, ACIA. All of those are really short ideas for me, except for ARRS. I would like to long. But again, anything could change. I mean, that's the thing about a trader is you say one thing, but in order to be a good trader, you can't be biased. You have to be willing to change and to move on a fly, because sometimes we'll short a stock and long a stock, the same stock in the same day. In the morning we're bullish, and in the afternoon we're bearish, or in the morning we're bearish, and in the afternoon we're bullish. You have to think that way as a trader. You can't let the names, you can't let emotions and all that stuff, like I mentioned at the beginning. You can't let that stuff control you, because if you let that control you, then you're just going to lose. Those who you see these people on the social media all the time, right? They marry those stocks. You say that you're going to short something, they call you like an ass. They start bashing you. That's just because they're married to that thing. I'm just in this stuff for a trade. I'm just out here trying to make money. I could care less what anyone else thinks. So, you got to be willing to do that. If you're struggling with that, this goes back to my whole beginning conversation. This game's 100% emotional, trust me. You know, I would go as far as to say you could throw darts and guess on your trades. As long as you were strong emotionally and you knew when you were in a loser and the trade wasn't going to work out and you just cut it and forgot about it and didn't get upset and just kept on doing your business, I would say you'd just be good guessing. You could just guess as long as you had good management. You know, when people get too invested into these stocks, they get too emotional about these stocks, they avoid the warning signs that tell them they should get out. You know, hey, I've done it too. I'm guilty. I've been around the, you know, we all go through that every once in a while. But the difference between the pros and the amateurs, the pros do it a hell of a lot less than the amateurs. So kind of keep that in mind as you're going through your trading career. You know, this is all an emotional game. It's about building the right kind of habits in the very beginning portions of your trading career so that you can grow into the trader that you want to be. Also remember, as we close the show here, don't forget about the Trade Ideas special. It's a nice special. You get a chance to trade ideas and be in the lincolnlist.com for free. As always, if you don't want trade ideas and you just want to trade with us, visit the lincolnlist.com, click on the link that says Trade Room, and then you visit our site and you can trade with us live at any time. So I hope I kind of entertained you, gave you some insights about scotch and trading and so on. Don't forget, next week we'll try to do this thing live and see how it goes. And we'll just kind of go from there. I thank all of you for your questions and your comments. Feel free, as always. You got anything you want me to talk about, topics you want me to discuss, support at thelincolnlist.com. Thanks for watching this video. Cheers. See you next week.